I remember that day like it's burned into my memory. I saw her. My daughter was lying on the driveway. Her wheelchair flipped over, paintbrush still in her hand, and standing above her was our HOA president, Margaret Hayes. No guilt, no fear. Just this cold satisfaction, like she believed she was right. She said something I'll never forget. "This neighborhood isn't made for people like her." That sentence broke something inside me. I ran to my daughter, held her in my arms, trying to stop the bleeding. She was crying, whispering, "Dad, I didn't do anything wrong." And she was right. She hadn't. Margaret thought her title made her untouchable. She didn't know who I was, or what that moment would set in motion. Because that attack didn't just change our lives, it exposed something much darker about the place we called home. I still remember the smell of the paint. My daughter loved painting that little wooden sign for our mailbox. She said she wanted to make our home feel brighter. I told her to stay close to the porch while I worked inside. It couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes where I thought life was ordinary. Then I heard it. A scream that didn't sound human. My heart stopped before my body even moved. I ran out, and the first thing I saw was red. Red on the driveway. Red on my little girl's hands. She was on the ground, shaking, eyes wide open but unfocused, and beside her, Margaret Hayes, the self-appointed queen of our HOA. Her hair perfect, her pearl necklace gleaming in the sun. And in her hand, a knife. For a second, everything froze. My instincts as a sheriff kicked in, but this wasn't a crime scene. This was my daughter. I dropped to my knees, pressing my hand against the wound on her shoulder. She was gasping, terrified, whispering, "Dad!" I didn't mean to make her mad. I didn't even answer. My hands were trembling too much to think. "Margaret," I said, my voice low, "put the knife down." She didn't. She just looked at me like I was the one intruding. "This wouldn't have happened," she said coldly, "if your daughter respected the rules." "We have standards here." Those words, standards, felt like fire in my chest. Before I could move, she stepped closer. That's when I drew my gun. Training took over. Calm, controlled, steady. "Drop it," I ordered again. She finally did, the blade clattering against the driveway. But she didn't look scared. She looked annoyed. Like getting caught was just another inconvenience in her perfect little life. By then, my radio was already in my hand. "Dispatch, this is Sheriff Carter. I need an ambulance at Maple and 5th. Possible stabbing. Victim is a juvenile." I remember how my voice cracked on the word juvenile. I couldn't bring myself to say my daughter. When the deputies arrived, I stepped back. I couldn't be the sheriff in that moment. I was just a father watching paramedics carry away the most important thing in my life. Margaret didn't run. She just stood there, arms crossed, lecturing one of my deputies about property boundaries like nothing happened. She said, "He shouldn't have let his daughter paint that sign without approval. That's vandalism." One of my deputies, Morales, glanced at me. He didn't even know how to respond. "Read her rights," I told him. My voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. Margaret scoffed. "Are you serious? I'm the HOA president. I run this neighborhood." "You don't run me," I said quietly. That's when her expression finally changed. For the first time I saw it, fear. She looked at my badge, at the blood on my hands, and realized exactly who I was. "This is a misunderstanding," she tried to say, her voice trembling. But it wasn't. 2 witnesses, neighbors, stepped out. One of them had their phone out. "She attacked her," the woman said, voice shaking. "The girl was just painting. I saw the whole thing." Margaret's confidence started to crumble. Her voice got smaller. "She was defacing property," she insisted. "It's against HOA rules." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in that moment, all I could think about was my daughter's heartbeat fading under my hand. The ambulance pulled away, sirens echoing through the neighborhood. The whole street was out now, people peeking from windows, pretending not to watch. Some were shocked. Others whispered like it was just another HOA scandal to gossip about. I walked toward Margaret as my deputy cuffed her. Her perfume mixed with the metallic scent of blood. She turned her head toward me and said, almost whispering, "You'll regret this. I'll have your badge." I leaned in close, my voice low enough for only her to hear. "You shot my daughter," I said. "The only thing you're getting is justice." For once, she didn't have anything to say. They put her in the back of the cruiser, and as the door slammed shut, I finally exhaled. The kind of exhale that feels like it takes every bit of life out of you. Neighbors began to speak quietly, stories about her, warnings they ignored, past threats. Apparently, this wasn't the first time she'd snapped. Just the first time she'd gone this far. One old man, Mr. Jacobs, came up to me. His eyes were full of guilt. "She came after my wife last year," he said softly. I didn't say anything. Thought it wasn't worth the trouble. I nodded but couldn't speak, because deep down I already knew. If someone had stopped her sooner, maybe my little girl wouldn't be fighting for her life. That thought. It stayed with me long after she was taken into surgery. I drove behind the ambulance, lights flashing but siren off. The town blurred past me like static. All I could hear was my own heartbeat and the echo of Margaret's voice saying, "We have standards here." I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. For the first time in years, I wasn't just a sheriff. I was a father looking for justice, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Because people like Margaret, they don't just break rules. They break people, and I wasn't about to let her do that again. They say justice is blind. But when the woman who hurt your daughter walks into court smiling, you start to wonder if justice can also be bought. It had been 6 weeks since the attack. My daughter, Lily, was home by then. Alive, but changed. The doctor said the knife missed her heart by less than an inch. But it left something deeper, fear. She wouldn't go near the driveway anymore. Wouldn't touch her paints. She'd flinch at the sound of heels on concrete. And Margaret? She was out on bail. A perfect dress. Designer sunglasses. Walking her little dog like she didn't have a care in the world. The media called it the HOA stabbing. Neighbors whispered. Reporters parked outside my house, and every night my phone buzzed with updates I didn't want to read. Then came the trial. The courtroom was full. Every seat taken, every whisper louder than it should have been. Margaret sat at the defense table, her lawyer beside her, slick, confident, ready to spin any story. She looked right at me when I walked in, and smiled. Like it was some kind of game. The prosecutor, Angela Morris, greeted me quietly. "We're ready," she said. "But she's not going to make this easy." Margaret's lawyer started with his story. He called it an unfortunate misunderstanding. Said Margaret feared for her safety, that she felt threatened by the sudden movement of a child with a paintbrush. The audience murmured. Even the judge's eyebrows lifted. Fear. That's what she was using. Fear to justify stabbing a 7-year-old girl. When it was my turn to take the stand, my hands were shaking. Not from nerves, from restraint. The prosecutor asked simple questions. Where were you when it happened? What did you see? I told them. Every word tasted like metal, and then she looked at me again. No remorse. Just that same smug calm. When the defense cross-examined, the lawyer smirked. He said, "Sheriff, isn't it true your daughter was violating HOA regulations? Painting without approval?" The courtroom went silent. For a moment, I just looked at him. Then I said quietly, "She was painting her name on a wooden sign her grandfather built. That's not a violation. That's childhood." He didn't ask another question after that, but what really broke the room was the witness testimony. Mr. Jacobs, the old man from down the street, stood up there with trembling hands. He said, "She's been terrorizing this neighborhood for years. We were all afraid to speak up." Then another woman, Angela from Lot 14, shared how Margaret once fined her for having a disabled parking permit without permission. It wasn't just my daughter. Margaret had been hurting people quietly, using power like a weapon, and now the world was finally watching. When Lily walked into court for the first time, every camera turned. She was still pale, still weak, but she wanted to come. She told me that morning, "I want her to see I'm not scared anymore." I sat there holding her hand as the doctor explained the damage, how the blade had pierced muscle and grazed a vital artery. Lily watched, eyes calm but fierce. When the prosecutor asked if she remembered what happened, Lily said softly, "She told me I was breaking the rules." And then, she cried. Even the bailiff looked away. Margaret tried to hide her face, but not fast enough. The cameras caught her eyes, cold, blinking, calculating. The trial lasted 8 days. 8 long days of lies, evidence, and waiting. When the jury went to deliberate, the courtroom fell silent. I could hear my own heartbeat again. I remembered the sirens that night, the blood on my hands, the way my little girl looked up at me and whispered, "Dad, am I gonna die?" Those memories, they don't leave you. When the jury came back, the room froze. The foreman stood up. On the charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant, Margaret Hayes, guilty. The room exhaled all at once, but then came the sentence. 10 years. Eligible for parole in 5. It didn't feel like enough. Not for what she'd done, not for what Lily had lost, but it was something. It was justice, even if it wasn't perfect. After the verdict, people started talking. Neighbors came forward with stories, letters, threats, fines for things that never existed. The HOA board dissolved within a month. They realized what they'd become under her rule. The neighborhood changed. For the first time in years, kids played outside again. Mailboxes got painted different colors. The world moved on, but for us, healing was slower. Some nights I'd find Lily awake, staring at the window. I'd sit beside her and she'd say, "I still hear her voice sometimes, Dad, the way she said I broke the rules." I told her, "Some people live to control others, sweetheart, but control isn't strength." She looked up at me and asked, "Then what is?" I smiled even though my chest ached. Knowing when to let go. A year later, I visited Margaret's sentencing hearing for her parole denial. She looked older, defeated. Her perfect hair gone gray, her hands trembling as she spoke. She didn't look like a queen anymore. Just another person who built her power on fear and watched it crumble. When she looked at me, she tried to speak. Maybe to apologize, but I just shook my head. There was nothing left to say. I didn't move here to start a war. I came to build peace for my family. But sometimes peace has to be defended. Margaret lost her freedom trying to prove she had control. My daughter lost a piece of her heart, but never her courage. And me? I learned that justice isn't revenge. It's the quiet that comes after the noise. Some people measure others by rules and power. But real strength is knowing when to let go.